In this video, we're going to look at functions that come built into Python and how we can use a couple of them to get input from the user. So there are a number of built-in functions that we can use in our programs. We've actually already seen one of them, which is the print function. And every function takes one or more parameters. And for the print function, the parameters are the things that we want to print, the expressions that we want to print. And when we call a function, we begin with the function name. So in this case, it's the print function. And then in parentheses, we put our parameter values separated by commas. In addition to taking one or more parameters in, most functions also return or output a value. So for example, there's a built-in function called ABS. It takes in a number as its only parameter, and it returns the absolute value of that number. To see the return value, we can make the function call from the shell. And so I can say I want to do ABS -20, and you can see that I get back +20 because that's the absolute value of -20. If I give ABS a positive number, it gives me back the same number. So that's an example of passing in a value, passing in a parameter, in this case 7, and then the function is returning a value, in this case also 7. We can also assign the result of a function call, the return value, to a variable. So let's say I'm trying to compute the distance between two x values on a number line. So x1 is 5, x2 is 15, and then distance is ABS x1 minus x2. So we're going to do this subtraction first. 5 minus 15 is -10. That -10 is then being given to the ABS function. It's going to turn it into +10, and then I'm assigning that +10 to the variable distance. So if I print distance, I'll see +10. Another example of a built-in function is the int function, and it allows us to convert from other types, other data types, to the int type. In particular, if we have a string representing a number and we pass it into the int function, we'll get back that number as a value of type int. For example, if I pass into the int function the string 105, and notice I know it's a string because of the quotes around it, it will return the integer 105 without any quotes around it. And we'll see in a moment why we might need to do this type of conversion. The input function is a very important function that allows us to get values from the user that we can then operate on in the context of our program. And the parameter of this function is a string that is going to serve as a prompt, and so the user will be asked to enter something using that prompt. And then what gets returned is a string with whatever characters were entered by the user. For example, let's call input using the prompt, "What is your name?" And notice that the prompt is a string, so we have to have quotes around it. You also want to put a space at the end of the prompt so that there'll be some space between the prompt and whatever the user enters. And so watch what happens when we make this call. So I hit enter, which is going to start the function call. The prompt gets printed, and now Python is waiting for me as the user to enter whatever I want. So if I go ahead and I enter Dave, and I hit enter, notice that we're seeing the string Dave show up here. That is the return value of the input function. It's what's being sent back. If I were to make the same call a second time, and this time I enter a different name, you can see we're getting that as the return value. Now typically we're going to do this in the context of an assignment statement. So we're going to take whatever string the user is entering and we're going to assign it to a variable. So here I'm saying take whatever gets returned, whatever the user enters, and assign it to the variable name. So again, it's going to start by printing the prompt. It's waiting for me to enter the name. This time I don't see the return value because I'm assigning it to that variable. But now if I print name, you can see that it's in that variable. The string that was entered by the user is now in that variable. Now the input function always returns a string. So for example, let's say I want the user to give me how many quarters he or she has. So I have that prompt. The prompt gets printed. It's waiting for me to enter something. I enter 17, but notice what gets returned is the string 17. And so if I want to be able to operate on this as if it were a number, if I want to be able to maybe multiply by 25 to find out the value, I'm going to have to convert this to an integer. And so we can use that int function that we talked about earlier. So here's what it looks like. Let's say I have a variable called quarters. I'm going to have a call to int, and then inside that call, I'm going to have the call to input. And this is going to get evaluated from the inside out. So first the call to input is going to happen. It's going to return a string, and then that string will get turned into an integer, and that integer will be assigned to the variable. So you can see the prompt gets printed. I enter 17, but now the value of quarters is the integer 17, not the string. And so I am able to do things like multiply by 25.